Over the weekend, we had UFC Vegas 92. It's not a card too many people were excited for, but in the end, there ended up being some solid finishes and what I thought was a true coming out type performance for Lerone Murphy. Put on a spectacular show versus Edson Barboza, winning fight of the night. We'll talk about that one a little bit at the end. I'm going to recap the whole card. We're going to start at the bottom, go all the way up. We kicked the night off. We kicked the night off with Vanessa Demopoulos versus Emily Ducote. And I really don't have too much to say on this one. It was a close fought split decision. Vanessa Demopoulos ends up getting the nod there. The real only thing I have to say is I disagree with who got the nod in the decision. It was 29-28, all three judges. 2 went Demopoulos, 1 went Ducote. I thought it should have been given 29-28 Ducote. But you can't. This isn't a fight where, to be honest, I don't think anybody cares to scream robbery for this fight specifically. But even if it was a big fight, this isn't one I don't think you can scream robbery. It was very close in each round. A lot of output from Demopoulos, the bigger strikes, the cleaner strikes landing from Ducote. It felt like neither really was able to separate themselves too much. So while I thought Ducote got the decision, it's not one I'm going to be complaining about, frankly, because I don't care, but also just because it was such a close fought fight in each round, to be honest. Um, Next up, Next up, the card, a bantamweight fight: Alatang Haley versus Clayton Rodriguez. And Clayton Rodriguez, we knew him from Contender Series. He's a fun, super athletic, dynamic striker. Um, he does have a bit of submission ability, but grappling defense, it's lacking hard, and we've seen that now. He's, I believe, 3-1 or 1-3 in the UFC now at this point. And I guess I'll talk about this fight first, but um, it was closely contested on the feet when it was there, but Alatang Haley just didn't really keep it on the feet for too long in each of the rounds. Clayton, while it was on the feet, didn't really do anything to separate himself to counteract the grappling that Alatang Haley was putting on Clayton. So there were really no arguments, just because, again, on the feet, Clayton didn't really do much to separate himself there either. And then towards the middle of the round, in each of the 3 rounds, Alatang Haley went out and got a takedown and was looking for ground and pound, got off a little bit of ground and pound, nothing devastating, but it almost looked like Clayton just had nothing, like no way to get up. He had nothing off of his back. He looked visibly frustrated, and I don't want to say he gave up, but at times it looked like he had kind of just accepted his fate that the round was going to end and he was going to be on his back when the bell came. So that was kind of disappointing from him because, again, on the feet, he can be a dynamic, fun striker to see. He's only 28, so he does have time to hopefully fix that. But I would say if he doesn't show improvement soon, his UFC tenure will come to an end. Like I said, 1-3 now in the UFC. Unanimous decision win on Contender Series. Split decision loss to CJ Vergara, which isn't a great look in my opinion. His only win in the UFC coming via first round knockout against Shannon Ross. Again, you're supposed to do that to Shannon Ross at this level. And then the 2 primary grapplers he's fought, Farid Basharat, first round submission. Clayton again showed nothing off of his back to be able to get up or stop Farid going for that submission. And then again, I just talked about it. He had nothing off his back for Alatang Haley. No way to get up. No submission. At least he wasn't showing submission ability off his back. It was almost like he accepted his fate that he was going to end each round on the back and lived with it. Again, another loss for him, 1-3 in the UFC. Unfortunate. Next up, a weird one. Piera Rodriguez making her return after, I want to say, 2 years. Let me pull that up real quick just to see how long it's been. Her last fight. Oh no, okay, just a year, just over a year. She fought last year in April, lost via round 2 armbar to Jillian Robertson. Comes in this year, and this fight was a wild one, just not because it was like a crazy fight in general, but just the circumstances that took place. It felt like Piera Rodriguez was kind of cruising in this fight. Obviously, Carnelossi is a big power puncher, and she's a little wild on the feet too. She swings to knock you out. She's obviously very strong. She's jacked. But it felt like even on the feet, Piera Rodriguez was leading the dance, landing a little bit more. And then the takedowns were there when she wanted them. She gets the takedown in the first round to secure the first round, and all 3 judges do agree with me in that that sense. I'm pretty sure I saw the scorecard on Twitter. It was scored by all three judges as a 10-9 to Piera Rodriguez. So she's going into that second round up, knowing if she continues to do what she's doing, this is probably going to end up as a decision win for her. Maybe she finds the submission on the ground as the fight progresses. But she goes out there, strikes a little bit more in the second round, gets the takedown again, and then the first time I will say looked unintentional. Like she was trying to bury her head in Carnelosi's chest to initiate her grappling, what she wanted to do in the grappling. The referee warns her because there was a little contact with the top of her head to Carnelosi's chin. The ref says, be careful, it's a headbutt. And this time, it doesn't even look like she was trying to bury her head in Carnelosi's chest this time. It was like she heard that. I don't know if there was just the pure amount of adrenaline or if she's just a little bit stupid, but she winds up and throws a full headbutt into Carnelosi's chin. The ref stops it. Carnelosi, I think knowing the direction the fight is going, especially actually, she didn't even get a takedown. She hurt, completely went about it wrong. Carnelosi didn't get taken down. She got hurt with a front kick to the face. Piera Rodriguez blitzed her with a few punches, gets her down to the ground that way. It wasn't a takedown. I completely forgot, and just talking about it now reminded me. But so, knowing how the fight is going, she just took a lot of damage from a big front kick, gets dropped. And I don't think the headbutt caused too much damage, but with the way the fight is going, she did just take a lot of damage from a front kick and a few strikes to drop her. She definitely took advantage of that, and It's hard to say whether she milked it or not, because from sitting on the couch, I would say it looked like she might have milked it a little bit. The fight ends up being a DQ. Piera Rodriguez gets the loss. Carnelosi goes back to the locker room before the decision is announced. Piera Rodriguez flips her off as she's leaving, and while I get I get her frustrations on Twitter, she posts a whole thing about Carnelosi being a coward and all that. You full-on headbutted her. It's just low fight IQ. I don't know if it's adrenaline. I don't know what it was, but awful decision from Piera Rodriguez. Carnelosi gets the win in the end, and it is what it is. She has to accept that. That is her own fault. Next up, Abus Magomedov makes his return to the octagon after two interesting bouts that did not go his way at all. Taking on Warley Alves, and he completely wiped the floor with Warley Alves. There wasn't too much striking on the feet. There was a little bit at the beginning of each round, but it was clear Abus probably worried about his gas tank while kickboxing, because if we've seen before, if he can't get you out of there in the first round like he did with Dustin Stoltzfus, he definitely tires out. We saw it versus Sean Strickland. He was putting a good pace on Sean Strickland, actually looking quite decent in the first round, landing a lot of shots, using those front kicks really well, backing Strickland up. I think he even did go for a takedown in that first round versus Sean Strickland, but he comes out in the second round, is completely gassed. We know Sean Strickland has pretty solid cardio. I would say he's on the higher end of good cardio. He puts a pace on, kind of flips the narrative, puts a pace on Abus, is walking him down and gets Abus out of there. So we know the gas tank is questionable for him, and then he just gets completely dominated on the ground by Kyle Braulio, has nothing for him there. So he comes out, does a little bit of kickboxing, not too much. Again, I think it's probably concern and being scared of gassing out, which if you've got the tools to use the grappling, I say do it, and that's clearly what his game plan was this time. He came out and looked very good in the grappling. All three judges scored at 30-26. He had some big elbows. I can't remember if it was late in round 2 or in round 3. I think it was round 2. That sliced Warley open pretty bad. It looked like there was times where maybe he could have pressed a little bit more to try and get the TKO finish, because he was landing some good elbows, some decent ground and pound at time. But again, he gets the 30-26 decision across the board. Looked pretty solid again, though. It is Warley Alves, who did fight at 185 last time, but typically we know that's not where he fights. He fought Nicholas Dalby at welterweight before Ikram, fought Jeremiah Wells at welterweight, Munir Lazez. So he's typically a welterweight guy coming up these past two fights, probably just because he's older. The weight cut's tough now, but two fights recently at least, in middleweight not going his way. So again, it'll be interesting to see Abus implement that grappling game plan versus a higher level of competition, because now we've seen what he can do with that grappling. I want to see him implement it versus somebody good, because he did look good on Saturday. So I'll say it again. It'll be interesting to see how he looks versus a higher level competition at this point. Next up, Tamires Vidal versus Melissa Gatto. Completely dominant performance. Melissa Gatto comes in on short notice, up a weight class from her typical weight class, fighting at 135 pounds, women's bantamweight, and she just puts it on Tamires Vidal for 3 rounds until she gets the TKO in the 3rd round. It was a great performance on the feet, on the ground. Tamires Vidal had nothing for her, completely dominant. And again, this is one where Tamires Vidal looked frustrated that she couldn't get anything off. She got punched in the chest, and I don't know. I can't sit here and say if it's a bad pain or not, but she gets hit with like a little shovel uppercut to the boob, turns off, covers up. The ref stops it there. I don't know if Tamires Vidal was trying to insinuate that that's an illegal strike, which we've seen before. It's not. That kind of thing has happened before, and it gets ruled a TKO for the other girl just because it's not illegal. Again, I can't comment on how much it hurts, but she turns away, covers up, the ref waves it off, and Melissa Gatto, I don't know if it's her bantamweight debut in general, but at least in the UFC, I believe it is. Let me just double check that. Flyweight. Yeah, so after 2 consecutive losses at flyweight to relatively tough competition in Tracy Cortez, who I will say is tough competition, and Ariane Lipski, who maybe she should get the nod there, maybe not, who knows. It was a split decision loss. Very close fight. She probably should be getting that win there, just in terms of the competition level, but bantamweight debut looks fantastic. I can't wait to see if she stays at bantamweight or not, because she did. She looked huge. She looked jacked. Like the weight class fit her body well, and one of her best performances. Again, maybe not the highest level of competition, but Tamires Vidal isn't a pushover by any means, so good performance there. Next up, I won't say like a super prospect coming in Umar Sy, but somebody people have been looking forward to. He gets his light heavyweight debut, taking on Tuco Tokos, and Sy actually had, let me pull it up on Tapology, how many different opponents he had for this fight. Initially supposed to be Rodolfo Bellato, gets changed nearly the week of, I think the week before, to Antonio Tricoli. Week of, Tricoli pulls out. We get Tuco Tokos on short notice. And a very dominant grappling performance for Umar Sy. He threw 8 strikes, only 1 landed. Not that that's a bad thing for what he did, because it just wasn't needed. He took Tokos down and just completely dominated on the ground, finding the rear naked sub in round 1. Tokos doing a bit of talking, which I can't. I've seen him fight once before on Road to the UFC when he got knocked out, so I can't say too much about if he's typically a talker or not, but talking about how Sy was getting tired, he could hear him breathing heavy, and then he immediately gets rear naked choked. So I thought that was pretty funny, but very dominant performance from Sy. It'll be interesting to see how, I can't say I'm ultra familiar with him, to be honest, but fighting out of KSW, fighting in Aries, 2 solid regional promotions, 3-0 in KSW, so that's a pretty solid look coming into the UFC. I'll be interested to see how his striking looks versus somebody a little bit better, somebody who can defend the grappling, and his grappling versus higher level guys. It'll be very interesting to see, but definitely a promising prospect for sure. And again, he could probably get in there pretty soon, so maybe he lines himself up for that Paris card coming up, which I could definitely see happening. So that'll be cool to see him again. And then next up, 2 guys who got knocked out in their debut after, I believe, both getting a knockout. I can't remember if Victor Martinez did on Contender Series or not. No, just a unanimous decision on Contender Series for Victor Martinez. But 2 guys getting Contender Series wins. Nolan the knockout versus Bogdan Grad. Victor Martinez the unanimous decision. Victor Martinez in his debut getting knocked out by Jordan Levitt via clinch knees, which I'm not even going to talk about. Tom Nolan getting overconfident versus Nicholas Mata. He talked about it a little bit, thought he was doing good early, felt like he thought Nicholas Mata was a little bit scared or tentative, and he just went for it, got caught. It is what it is. But a good performance for him tonight. I don't really rate Victor Martinez all that highly, so again, another guy I want to see do this versus a bit higher level. Like if he did this to Nicholas Mata, I'd be a little bit more impressed. Not saying it wasn't a good performance, because it was, but I feel like this is something he should do versus Victor Martinez. But he was using his front kicks very well. He's a 6'3" lightweight. He's absolutely huge and long. Good Muay Thai all around. That's his style. And I thought the front kicks were fantastic, landing them to the body quite a bit. He had some really good step-in knees, which is what ended up being the finishing shot for Victor Martinez. Victor Martinez jumped in to like clinch or something, or push him up against the fence in some sort of way, and Nolan just meets him halfway with a nasty knee, drops him, gets a little bit of ground and pound off, the ref stops it. But again, there was a point where Nolan, at least to me, from my perspective, I thought it looked like he was cruising. The front kicks were landing very well. He got a little bit overconfident, came in with his hands down. Or not really came in with his hands down, but threw some strikes and maybe didn't bring his defense back to where it should be, and ends up getting caught with a decent little shot from Victor Martinez. Kind of stumbled. I wouldn't say it really hurt him that bad. It looked more like it caught him off guard, and he stumbled back. He ended up being fine from it, but just those moments where the fight is going your way, you feel like you're cruising, you're dominating. Doesn't feel like it could go the other way. He's just got to be a little more smart, be a little more present. Don't get overconfident in those moments, because it's what got him hurt it's what got him knocked out in the first fight, got him tagged in the second fight. He does end up coming out with the win though, so I'd say solid performance overall from Tom Nolan. Very good finish. Next up, first fight on the main card, Luana Pinheiro taking on Angela Hill. Fantastic performance from Angela Hill. Pretty bad performance from Luana Pinheiro, I'd say. She came out doing her typical stuff, looking for judo throws, looking for the big looping shots that she always throws, and they were just not landing. I don't know if it was because Angela Hill was a little bit quicker than she thought she was going to be. She was definitely harder to take down with those judo tosses than Pinheiro thought she would be, and it was really, I won't say cruising for Angela Hill, because she did get tagged a couple times and it kind of looked like she stumbled a bit, but it never really felt like Pinheiro was really in the fight. Angela Hill gets her first UFC submission. It might be the first submission of her whole career. Let me double check. Yeah, first submission of her whole professional career, not just in the UFC. So that's pretty cool to see. She's on a good little 2-fight win streak, beating Denise Gomez and Luana Pinheiro back-to-back. So two up-and-coming Brazilian prospects. She knocks them down. And she's actually on one of the better runs of her career, to be honest, late in her career. 4-1 in her last 5, beating Lupi Godinez. That's a really good win. Emily Ducote, it is what it is. Only losing to Mackenzie Dern, who I would say is kind of a step above all these other girls that she's beat. Lupi Godinez is a good... to be honest, her last 2 wins are pretty solid too. Luana Pinheiro, Denise Gomez, Lupita Godinez. Those are pretty solid wins. Only losing to Mackenzie Dern, not too bad. So she's on a really good run right now, kind of showing that even though she's getting up there in age, nearly 40 years old, she's been doing this for a while. She's still somebody you've got to beat to really prove yourself in the strawweight division for these girls, for these up-and-coming prospects. And I think she was fighting up, so this is a good win for her in terms of pushing up the rankings, because now she's not fighting down, defending her rank. She's getting to kind of push up, but it'll be interesting to see who she gets next. Very good win. Cool she got a submission. And next up on the card, another guy, I don't know where I was going with that, but a guy who needed some get back from previous 2 performances, kind of a y'all must have forgot type performance, I thought, here from Adrian Yanez. He started off his UFC career fantastically. A round 1 knockout on Contender Series, a round 1 head kick knockout versus Victor Rodriguez in his debut, a round 3 knockout in his second fight, round 2 knockout in his third. Split decision win versus Davy Grant. I think some people thought Davy Grant should have got that. I haven't watched it recently, so I can't say I remember off the top of my head. And then the round 1 knockout versus Tony Kelly. He gets pushed into the rankings, and he definitely encounters some trouble fighting top-level guys, easily fighting the hardest fights of his career, getting knocked out by Rob Font in round 1, and an absolute massacre by Jonathan Martinez with leg kicks, gets the leg kick TKO in round 2. And I think a lot of people were down on him. He talked about it a little bit. He felt like some fans turned on him, and he really needed to show what he was about. Again, this is more the level of guys he was fighting before that 2-fight streak against Rob Font and Jonathan Martinez. This is more the level of the Randy Costas, the Tony Kellys. He fought Vinicius Salvador, and a flyweight coming up to bantamweight. He's a decent creative striker, but I don't rate him all too highly. If you're getting pushed back against, he does end up getting the knockout win versus Shannon Ross. But if at points in a fight you're getting pushed back against the cage and Shannon Ross is kind of teeing off on you, that is never a good look. So Adrian Yanez does what he's supposed to do, kind of shows everybody he's still here. A great knockout. He was swinging from the fences from minute 1, so you could tell that's what he came to do. Kind of surprised he didn't get a bonus, but they ended up going with Angela Hill instead, which I totally understand. But yeah, good performance to get back in the win column, and he does need to show he can do it versus a higher level of competition, though it's going to be this kind of revolving door where he beats a couple lower level guys, loses to a higher level guy, beats a couple lower level guys, loses to a higher. So we want to see him. He's a very fun fighter, cool personality too. He streams on Twitch from time to time. We want to see him do it versus a higher level guy. I think he can. He does have great boxing. He addressed the leg kicks well in this fight, I will say. Vinicius Salvador didn't overload him with leg kicks like Jonathan Martinez did, but when they did come, he was checking, so that was nice to see. That was in his head for sure. So can't wait to see Adrian Yanez back again. Great back in the win column performance from him. Then we get to the last 3 fights. This is one, again, I don't have too much to say about. Themba Gorimbo taking on Ramiz Brahimaj, who is coming off of a 2-year layoff, maybe near 3-year, I can't remember off the top of my head, and I don't care to look, to be honest, and a nearly career-ending injury, so not good circumstances to make your comeback. Themba Gorimbo does what he needed to do. We've seen Brahimaj gas. He's a good grappler early on. We've seen him slow down tremendously after round 1, and that's kind of what happened. He didn't even really get his grappling off in the first round. It was a little more back and forth in the first round, but Themba still got it on all 3 judges' cards. Cage pushing really for the majority, landing knees in the clinch, kind of throwing shots here and there up against the fence, but really nothing too crazy. He would get takedowns, not really be able to hold Brahimaj down for that long, and then they would get back to some cage pushing. It wasn't very entertaining. Themba did go through something pretty hard during fight week, though. A coach who he asked to stay longer, who was supposed to go back to see his sick mother, his mother ended up passing. So that is sad, and I can see how that's heavy. Maybe his mind wasn't all there, but he did what he had to do, got the win, and will definitely be looking for a better performance next time out. Co-main event, Chaos Williams versus Carlston Harris. I picked Carlston Harris in this one. I thought he was going to come out and go with a complete grappling game plan, because I feel like as a fighter, you've got to be self-aware. If striking isn't your strong suit and you're coming into a fight with a guy who has outrageous knockout power and is clearly a through and through striker, that is his main discipline. So he goes in there and strikes with Chaos Williams for I think 3.5-ish minutes. And no, it was probably less. It was probably 2 minutes. Yeah, it didn't feel very long at all, but Carlston Harris really never got anything up. You could see Chaos was probing that body, probing that jab to the body, setting up the overhand. You could see that he was setting a big shot up. The moment comes for the big shot. He said he wanted to hit him with an overhand and then knock him out with the left hook, but the overhand was enough. The big right hand was enough, and Chaos Williams gets the brilliant first round knockout and a performance bonus, which is pretty good. I'd say well deserved. And Carlston Harris just has to be smarter. Like if you're a solid grappler, better than Chaos Williams, I'd say, and that's where you're gonna find your path to victory, looking for the submission, looking to keep him on the ground, stay away from that big right hand. I think you've got to implement that much better. So, good win for Chaos Williams. Kind of want to see what he's looking like lately. 4-1 in his last. His only UFC losses are Michel Pereira and Randy Brown. And it was a split decision loss versus Randy Brown. So, he's a guy to watch out for. He's definitely getting better and better. Only lost to top level guys. Beat guys like Alex Morono, Abdul Razak Al Hassan, Matthew Semmelsberger, now Carlston Harris. Good little run so far. It'll be interesting to see him take a step up again. See if he can get a win versus that Michel Pereira, Randy Brown level guy who is just kind of a step above the guy he is beating. The guys he is beating. And then we get to the main event. And I talked about it a little bit at the beginning, a true coming out performance for Lerone Murphy. I picked Edson Barboza in this one, so I missed on the co-main and the main, just pick-wise. And there's not much to say other than a ridiculous performance from Lerone Murphy. A very fun fight. A few points that truly impressed me were his ability to recover, his pace through 5 rounds, and his cardio, because we've seen him slow down in 3-round fights before, and we've seen him kind of take 3-round fights slower. So to put on a pace like that versus Edson Barboza after getting dropped in the first round, which they didn't call it a knockout, which is kind of shocking to me. He had a takedown against Edson right at the end of the round. Edson throws a nasty up kick. It clearly drops Lerone Murphy, but the recoverability there was fantastic from Lerone Murphy. He comes out the second round and didn't miss a beat at all. Continues doing what he was doing in that first round before, which was having a nasty jab, waiting for the bigger shots with his right hand to come, and mixing in the takedowns very well. It was just a through and through fantastic performance. And going back to the cardio, we've seen him slow down a little bit and fight at a bit of a slower pace in 3-round fights. For him to come out here and do that to Edson Barboza, he landed more strikes than Edson Barboza threw. He landed more strikes than Edson Barboza threw in total. That's crazy. And he did, obviously, if you watch the post-fight press conference, he clearly took some damage, but you're not going to come out of a fight with Edson Barboza unscathed over 5 rounds. Yeah, well, it was 50-45 for 2 judges, 49-46 for 1 judge. I think that has to be the round where the up kick landed. So again, kind of weird to see they didn't score it a knockdown. But I do think if I was scoring the fight, Lerone Murphy had done enough prior to that up kick landing to still outweigh the up kick, I'd say. I have no other words other than fantastic performance from Lerone Murphy. He talked a little bit about it. He said he feels, which isn't the best thing, but at least he's self-aware. He fights to the level of the opponents he's fighting, so maybe that's why some of his fights against the lower level guys have been a bit more competitive, a bit more slow maybe, not as decisive, but he comes in here and completely shows out versus an elite fighter. So this is easily the toughest fighter he's faced yet, the highest level fighter he's faced yet, and he, again, puts on a show, puts on a clinic. Yeah, I just have nothing more to say. He showed he deserves to be in the rankings. Undefeated in the UFC. His only kind of blunder is a draw versus Zubaira Tukugov, but that was his debut fight. So it is what it is, a little blip, and he's rattled off 6 wins in a row now, including the Edson Barboza win. Very impressive. He's earned himself a rank for sure. I can't wait to see who he gets next. And then just at the end, I always like to give what I would have given for my bonuses. I think they nearly got what I would have done, but fight of the night was easy. Lerone Murphy versus Edson Barboza. Both guys deserve $50K for that. I'm going Chaos Williams, which, again, he did get a performance bonus, performance of the night. I would have gone Adrian Yanez. I don't hate giving one to Angela Hill just because it was such a dominant, impressive performance. I would have gone with the knockout, though, from Yanez. And then I don't know if Dana has like a cap if he's going three bonuses per event, because 2 guys get 50K for fight of the night, so 4, if he's giving out 200K a night or something. I don't know if that's strict, but if that's not the case, I would have doubled up for Lerone Murphy. He gets fight of the night and performance of the night, so I would have given 3 performances, 1 fight of the night. And again, kind of like a card that not too many people were excited for, but it did end up being relatively fun. Some good finishes. Obviously, maybe the early decision wasn't great. We got a DQ. And then, yeah, there's a point where we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 finishes in a row. 3 finishes on the main card. It was a pretty fun card overall. Definitely entertaining. But now we've got a week off. Tomorrow, I don't know if I'll post it tomorrow or just cook it up tomorrow when the rankings come out, but I'm going to either make and upload or just make and upload on Wednesday. But within the next 2 days, I'll have the matchmaking video out. And then that'll probably be all for this week. Next week, I will get out, I'll be back to doing the prediction videos. I'm going to do them a little bit differently, a little bit shorter, more brief, kind of just get my main points out instead of talking about each thing I could talk about for each fight. And then I'll have shorter versions of this on TikTok. I'll probably call it like my 3 takeaways from UFC Vegas 92. And then I'll do like main card matchups on TikTok or something, just to kind of hopefully get some traffic over to the YouTube. But yeah, that is all. I'll see you guys either tomorrow or Wednesday. Peace.